Welcome back once again. On the evening of September 9th, 1980, the massive cargo ship MV Derbyshire was cutting through the waves of the Pacific Ocean, heading toward Japan. But from the east, something else was heading its way. A guest no one had invited. Typhoon Orchid. A storm that was growing more violent by the hour. The MV Derbyshire had already been at sea for 8 continuous weeks. After picking up 150,000 tons of iron ore from a Canadian mine, it had crossed the Atlantic, passed the southern tip of Africa, sliced through the Indian Ocean, and was now approaching its final destination. There were 42 experienced crew members on board, including engineers, helpers, and technical experts. They were counting down the final hours of their journey. But fate had other plans. Captain Jeffrey Underhill, a veteran with 20 years of experience, was in command. His wife had already flown to Japan to meet him, but that reunion would now remain just a dream. For days, Captain Underhill had been relying on weather reports. He'd faced storms before, and believed that the Derbyshire could handle Typhoon Orchid too. Safe harbor was far away, so turning back wasn't an option. The only way was through. He reduced speed and turned the ship slightly toward the waves, a standard tactic during storms to keep the vessel stable. He also sent out an emergency message, informing authorities of the situation and sharing the ship's last known coordinates. But the storm wasn't slowing down. The waves had reached over 10 meters, with some towering as high as the ship itself. The Derbyshire was nearly 1,000 feet long, larger and wider than the Titanic, and as tall as a 16-story building. This wasn't just any ship. It was a floating fortress of steel, built specifically to handle the world's harshest seas. That's why, to the captain, this typhoon seemed like business as usual. But deep beneath those dark waters, something was about to happen that no one could have imagined. That same night, 2 other ships also faced the typhoon. They both made it safely to port, but the MV Derbyshire vanished without a trace. This giant steel vessel simply disappeared. No distress call, no debris, no sign at all. For 6 days, the world heard nothing. Even the ship's owners didn't report it missing. Maybe they assumed radio contact had simply been lost, and that the Derbyshire would reappear near some coast. But days passed with no word. On September 15th, concern finally kicked in. An international search mission was launched. Helicopters, planes, naval ships, all scouring the ocean around the ship's last reported location. But they found nothing, not a single floating piece of the ship. After 6 days, the search was called off. Authorities casually concluded that the ocean had swallowed it whole, without any formal investigation. The case was quietly closed. The media moved on just as fast. Families of the missing crew sent requests for answers, but were told there was nothing to investigate. It didn't sit right. Something felt off, like the truth was being hidden. The MV Derbyshire wasn't some outdated vessel. It was a modern engineering marvel, built just 4 years earlier by the Swan Hunter shipyard in Britain. It could carry over 150,000 tons, 4 times more than most ships built just 20 years before. But it wasn't just the size, it was the design. The Derbyshire was an OBO carrier, capable of transporting oil on one side and iron ore on the other. This allowed it to never return empty, drastically cutting shipping costs and increasing revenue by up to 30% compared to traditional cargo ships. Yeah, it belonged to the elite bridge class. Only 6 of these ships existed in the world at the time. But here's where it gets interesting. Swan Hunter, the company that built it, was under immense pressure. Japanese and South Korean shipbuilders were making similar vessels faster and cheaper. To compete, Swan Hunter began cutting corners. And that might be the hidden cause behind the Derbyshire's disappearance. For most, the story ended there. But not for Peter Rudyard. He lost his son on the Derbyshire. But he wasn't just a grieving father. He was also a highly skilled marine surveyor who had spent his career analyzing ships and the sea. And he wasn't letting this go. In 1982, just 18 months after the Derbyshire vanished, another bridge-class ship, Tyne Bridge, was caught in a storm in the North Sea. Cracks started forming on the steel near the ship's superstructure. The captain ordered an immediate evacuation. Everyone was saved by airlift. The ship barely survived. Peter investigated that ship and found something chilling. Cracks had formed in the exact same place where the Derbyshire may have failed. He started digging deeper and uncovered documents showing that every bridge-class ship had developed cracks in the same spot. They were being quietly recalled and repaired at different ports. Even more shocking, some ships had been built differently than the original design. Certain parts were modified in haste to save time and money. Peter compiled all the evidence and sent it to the Department of Transportation. Their response? We've already done a proper investigation. There's no need for another. But the families weren't buying it. In 1984, they formed the Derbyshire Families Association, demanding the truth. Then in 1986, another bridge-class ship, Kowloon Bridge, developed cracks and was grounded near the coast of Ireland. This time, the damage was fatal. The ship's weakened hull couldn't handle the rough Atlantic seas. It was the sixth and final bridge-class ship, the only one that hadn't been properly repaired. Whoa! Now even the British government couldn't ignore it. They opened a new investigation. But once again, Peter's evidence was dismissed. Experts blamed the sea, not the ship. The final report claimed there was no structural failure, just another ship lost to the waves. It was a slap in the face to the families. They believed the real problem wasn't the ocean, it was the system. Still, they didn't give up. In 1994, with help from the International Transport Workers Federation, they funded a private mission to find the Derbyshire. And against all odds, they found it, 4 kilometers beneath the Pacific, in just 23 hours. It was a huge breakthrough. For the next 6 years, experts analyzed every inch of the wreck. They took thousands of photographs and slowly unraveled the truth. The final report revealed what really happened. Near the bow of the ship was a compartment called the bosun's store, used to store ropes, chains, tools, and other gear. That night, the door of bosun's store failed. It wasn't built to spec, and water started flooding in. Thousands of gallons filled the front of the ship, weighing it down. The bow sank deeper, waves crashed harder, ventilators snapped, and water reached the machinery rooms. Then one massive wave smashed through the hatch cover of a cargo hold carrying iron ore, also built below standard. Water poured in. The ship's front went even lower. One by one, the cargo holds flooded, and the Derbyshire, Britain's largest ship, sank silently into the Pacific. The report confirmed that every bridge-class ship had cracks near the bosun's store and that hatch covers were too weak. So in the end, it wasn't some massive design flaw. It was a series of small, avoidable mistakes that brought down a steel giant. In the 1970s, losing ships was treated like a numbers game. But thanks to the families of the Derbyshire crew, the shipping industry was forced to change. New designs, stricter rules, better inspections. Outclass, they didn't just find a missing ship, they changed an entire industry. And today, many safety rules in the shipping world exist only because of the MV Derbyshire, which still lies quietly 4 kilometers deep on the Pacific floor. Thanks for watching this video by Zimvoice. We hope you'll like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.